I am Francis of Assisi, but before the world whispered my name in prayer, before the birds drew near without fear, before people called me a saint, I was a young man who loved money, noise, and glory more than God. And that is where my story truly begins. I was born into comfort. Silk and fine cloth passed through my hands every day. My father was a wealthy merchant, and he dreamed of making me richer than himself. I wore the best clothes, spent gold without thinking, and laughed loudly in the streets of Assisi. People knew me, they admired me, they followed me, and yet, when the music ended and the cups were empty, something inside me felt hollow. I did not know God then. I knew excitement, I knew applause, I knew how to be admired, but I did not know peace. So I searched for meaning in the loudest place I could find: war. I believed the battlefield would make me a hero. I imagined myself returning to Assisi, dressed in armor, praised by the people, honored by my father. But God had other plans. I was captured, thrown into prison, forgotten. My body grew weak, my spirit darker. Days turned into months, and in that cold cell, the dreams I once worshipped began to rot. There, in the silence, a voice stirred within me, not loud, not commanding, but persistent. Francis, what are you really living for? When I was released and returned home, I was no longer the same. The songs no longer satisfied me. The feasts tasted dull. The laughter felt forced. The world I once adored had lost its color, and I did not understand why. Then one day, I saw him, a leper. His body was broken, his face disfigured, his smell unbearable. I had avoided such people all my life. Everyone did. We crossed the street, we looked away, we pretended they did not exist. My body screamed at me to run, but something stronger held me still. I stepped closer. Every instinct rebelled, and then, I embraced him. In that moment, something miraculous happened. What should have filled me with disgust filled me with joy. Where there was fear, there was peace. Where there was revulsion, there was love. And when I pulled away, it was as if I had embraced Christ himself. From that day on, I could not return to who I had been. Soon after, I wandered into a small, forgotten church called San Damiano. Its walls were cracked, its roof collapsing. I knelt and prayed, not with eloquence, but with exhaustion. And then I heard it, a voice that shook my soul. Francis, rebuild my church, which you see is falling into ruin. I trembled. I believed he meant stones and mortar. I did not yet understand he meant something far greater. So I did what I thought was right. I took my father's cloth, sold it, and gave the money to repair the church. My father was furious. His anger burned hotter than any fire I had ever known. He dragged me before the bishop, demanding justice. There, before God and man, I made a decision that would change my life forever. I removed my fine clothes, I placed them at my father's feet, and I said, from now on, I will no longer say my Father on earth. I will say only, Our Father who art in heaven. I stood naked, humiliated, free. That day, I lost everything the world valued, and yet, I had never been richer. I began to live with nothing. No money, no weapons, no protection, only the gospel. I begged, I served, I prayed, and strangely, joy followed me everywhere. People laughed at me, called me foolish, but others watched, and something in their hearts stirred. They asked to follow me. I did not promise them comfort, I promised them truth. And this was only the beginning, because soon, I would discover that rebuilding God's church meant rebuilding my own heart first, and that the cost of following Christ would be far greater than I ever imagined, but also far more beautiful. When I chose poverty, I thought I had already given everything. I was wrong. True surrender does not happen all at once. It peels you layer by layer, until nothing remains but God. Men began to walk beside me, not because I was strong, but because they were tired of pretending the world satisfied them. We owned nothing. We slept wherever night found us. We begged for food and thanked God for crumbs. And yet, we were more joyful than the wealthy men who passed us on the road. People called us fools. They were not wrong, but it was a holy foolishness. I did not want followers. I wanted brothers. No ranks, no power, no possessions. Only the gospel lived exactly as Christ spoke it. When we heard his words, take nothing for the journey, we did not interpret them, we obeyed them. Still, my heart was tested. As our numbers grew, so did fear. What if I lost control? What if this movement was not from God but from my own pride? The very poverty that freed me now terrified me, so I did the only thing I knew to do. I went to Rome. I stood before Pope Innocent III, trembling. I had no plan, no argument, only a way of life that seemed too radical, too dangerous, too impossible. Many laughed. Others warned the Pope that I was reckless, that my path would destroy men. That night the Pope dreamed. He saw the Church of Lateran collapsing and a small, poor man holding it up with his bare hands. The next morning, He approved our way of life. And suddenly, what the world mocked, the church embraced. But approval did not mean peace. The brothers struggled. Hunger tested us. Cold broke our bodies. Some left, others doubted. And I began to fear that what had begun in purity would slowly rot into comfort. That rules would replace love. That structure would suffocate the spirit. So I withdrew. I prayed. I wept. I begged God not to let me become the very thing I had fled. It was during this time that I discovered something dangerous. People listened to me. They admired me. They praised me. And praise is a quieter enemy than wealth, but far deadlier. So I ran from it. I sought the company of the smallest creatures. I spoke to birds, not because they were innocent, but because they expected nothing from me. I called the sun my brother, the moon my sister, the earth my mother. Creation did not flatter me. It reminded me of my place, small, beloved, nothing more. Then came the Sultan. During the Crusades, while hatred burned across the land, I crossed enemy lines unarmed. No sword, no protection, only faith. I stood before Sultan Al-Kamil and spoke of peace, not conquest. Many thought I was mad. Some expected my death, but instead, I was received. I learned then that the gospel disarms even those the world calls enemies. Still, the greatest battle was not across deserts or before kings. It was within my own soul. I loved Christ so deeply that I longed not only to follow him but to resemble him, not in glory, in suffering. I prayed one prayer over and over. Lord, let me feel what you felt when you loved the world to the end. I did not know what I was asking because heaven heard me, and what followed would mark my body and my soul forever. But that story, that fire, that mystery, belongs to the final chapter. By the time I climbed Mount La Verna, my body was already breaking. Years of hunger, cold nights, endless walking, hidden pain I never spoke of. My eyes were weak. My strength faded quickly, but my heart burned more fiercely than ever. I had followed Christ in poverty. I had followed him in obedience. Now I longed to follow him in suffering. I did not ask for visions. I did not ask for signs. I asked for one thing only. Lord, let me feel the love that held you on the cross, and the pain that love required. Then heaven answered. Before me appeared a seraph radiant, terrible, beautiful, bearing the image of the crucified Christ. Light pierced me. Fire consumed me. And when the vision faded, my flesh bore the wounds of his passion. My hands, my feet, my side. The pain was real, relentless. But so was the union. From that day on, every step was agony. I hid the wounds as best I could. I did not want admiration. I wanted silence. But suffering humbles what pride still clings to. And slowly, I learned to disappear. As my strength faded, I composed songs not of sorrow, but of praise. I sang of brother sun who warmed my fragile bones. Of sister moon who watched over my sleepless nights. Of sister water who cleansed my wounds. And finally, of sister death. Yes, death. I was not afraid of her when she approached. I welcomed her as family. I asked to be laid naked upon the earth. Not in despair, but in gratitude. I had entered the world with nothing, and I would leave it the same way. The brothers wept. I sang, and in my final breath, I understood everything. That joy is not found in possessing, but in surrendering. That love is proven not in words, but in wounds. That the smallest life, when offered fully to God, can change the world. I was not strong. I was not wise. I was not holy by my own doing. I was simply willing. And if God could write his story through me, a broken merchant's son from Assisi, then hear me when I say this to you. It is not too late. Your past does not disqualify you. Your weakness does not repel God. If your heart is restless, it is because it was made for more. If the world feels empty, it is because it cannot hold eternity. So begin where you are. Give what you can. Love without fear, and rebuild with God the church. Starting with your own soul. If this story touched your heart, do not let it end here. Subscribe to this channel to discover the hidden battles, the silent suffering, and the divine exaltation of those who dared to believe in God when the world offered them nothing. Here you will hear the untold stories of saints who were broken before they were raised, forgotten before they were glorified, and tested before they were crowned in eternity. Their pain was real, their faith was costly, and their reward was eternal. Subscribe and walk with us through the mysteries, the sacrifices, and the triumphs of souls who trusted God completely, even when it cost them everything.